Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the meeting of the Barrie Police Service Board for October 17th, 2024. I'd like to call the meeting to order and begin with our land acknowledgement. In keeping with Indigenous protocol and building respectful relationships between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples in Canada, it is customary to acknowledge the traditional territories and ancestral lands of Indigenous peoples. We would like to acknowledge that this sacred land on which the Barrie Simcoe Emergency Services Campus operates, it has been the site for human activity for 15,000 years. This land is the ancestral land of the Wendat and the Anishinaabe Nation. The treaty that was signed for this particular parcel of land is collectively referred to as the Williams Treaty. We are dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture. We also recognize the enduring presence of Indigenous peoples on this land and are committed to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation, respect. Thank you. Our agenda was distributed in advance and was a slight amendment last night to drop the appointment auxiliary members that were originally on the first agenda, but a motion to approve the amended agenda. Mr. Khan, Mayor Nuttall, any questions, comments, or with respect to the agenda? Seeing none, those in favor? Thank you. Does any member of the board have a conflict of interest like to declare with respect to today's agenda? Seeing none, we have two sets of minutes to approve. First, a motion to approve our minutes of September 19th, 2024. Mr. Khan? Mayor Nuttall, any questions, comments, or amendments to those minutes? Seeing none, those in favor? Thank you. Also, I'll entertain a motion to approve our minutes of our September 27th, 2024 special. Mr. Khan? Mayor Nuttall, any questions, comments, or amendments with respect to those minutes? Seeing none, those in favor? Thank you. Chief, I'll hand it back or hand it over to you with respect to an update on our 2025 operational and capital budget. Chief?
Thank you, Chair. And I know the board's well aware of our finance manager, Tyrell. Just give a brief overview for the board and in terms of the one page that we've submitted.
Definitely. Good morning. So for the board meeting, we'd submitted just a one-page overview, which really it's just a high-level summary of the detailed presentation that we made back on September 12th. But just as a quick refresher, we had grouped the budget into kind of three main themes, which are staffing and service levels to the community, legislative impacts, and advancements in technology and innovation. And those align with the buildup of our three main components. Those consist of the 2024 carry forward amounts. That includes the differences in the collective agreement, the annualization of the 2024 new hires, and then the historical retirement cost levels. Those make up 1.52%. The majority of the 2025 request comes within the non-discretionary bucket. The non-discretionary includes our prescribed salary and wage increases, legislative impacts, which include kind of three main ones. That's the Community Safety and Policing Act implementation, the Next Generation 911, and then the WSIB legislation for mental stress injuries, combined with inflation and growth impacts, make up the total non-discretionary total of 4.41%. And then finally, the non-discretionary bucket includes areas where we've been able to minimize the impact on the 2025 request through revenue and efficiencies. And then we've also made some small investments in technology with the goal of increasing transparency to the community, increasing safety, and preparing for that future growth. So in total, those three add up to a total request of $71,431,518. That's a $3,907,665 increase over 2024, or a total of 5.79% increase.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Just to advise the public that the board did receive the detailed agenda at our September 12th meeting. So this is an update. And during that time, the board has had an opportunity to review it in even greater detail. And I know from talking to members of the board that there are some questions. So I'll open it up to the board to comment on the proposed budget as it stands now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I apologize to my fellow members for not circulating this in advance. But we've been looking at a conversation about some of the ability to coordinate City Hall resources for security alongside the opportunities that exist for an increase in presence for the Barrie Police Department, and really trying to maximize the dollars that we have and that we're trusted with by the public, both of the municipal side as well as here at the Barrie Police Service. So I don't want to necessarily stifle any debate if there's going to be any debate, but I do want to ask that, and I'll take your direction on this, ask that we give our chief and team the opportunity to work out some details on what that would look like to be included in the 2025 budget. In parallel to the Barrie Police Service budget, as you know, we have a municipal budget that we're working on, and so both of those processes eventually in December will come together at City Hall. So we do have a couple of months, but certainly look to your direction on how you would like to handle this. I think maybe a deferral of the entire budget or a report back prior to the budget being finally assumed.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I have confirmed with the city that our November meeting does fall within the timeline to present to your city staff. So we certainly can defer until the November meeting for final approval and any amendments to that budget as it stands. I think it's just it will be a report back that hopefully the chief and senior command can give us in advance to see what that might look like, chief. And then we can consider with final approval. I also know for the board that the chief has an item that I'd like to speak to as well. So I'll let you speak to the first one, chief, and then perhaps the second one. But I think the idea of deferring final approval to our November meeting makes sense if we're considering making some adjustments as it stands. Chief.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, more than happy. So in November, if it's agreeable to the board, to bring a robust package forward in terms of the presentations. Just to the end of the day, we want an informed board. So let us present to you, and then if it's satisfactory to the board or not, you can go from there with respect to the downtown. Appreciating today we have that downtown update, but this will be separate than that. It's in terms of in the new year to look at that. And with respect, if that's agreeable, Chair.
Yeah, and that's the whole purpose. We got the budget a month or so ago with a 1-hour presentation, and now we've had the opportunity to spend our own time reviewing it, and you know, we're kicking the can down the road with respect to a few other ideas that we would like to consider before we finalize the budget. So the board would look forward to that report a week or so in advance of our board meeting. So see what that looks like and discuss. Obviously, you'll probably have to discuss some of the logistics, perhaps with the city of Barrie, and what processes they have in place, and maybe what some of the expectations might be of the citizens of Barrie as to different or unique or additional approach to our downtown. Thanks. We'll look forward to receiving that, Chief. I'll stop there, Chief. Any questions from those? I should remind or advise the public that Deputy Mayor Vice Chair Thompson is online, as is member Ms. Scott. So They have joined us. They have been here since the start of the virtually. So, any questions from our other members? Comments? Seeing none. Chief, your update on some news that you got recently, please, that may impact our budget.
Thank you, Chair, and apologies that this came to light on the 12th of October, so just at the end of last week. And again, as we're well aware, things change on a regular basis in the world. And so the document before the board, it's just informing them of a notification from the Ministry of the Solicitor General with respect to the forthcoming approval of the TASER 10 manufactured by Axon. I do have Human Resources Manager Steve Bound here, in charge of training as well, with some subject matter expertise from our training unit. So if the board has questions, but as a result of this information coming forward, there is the ability for, on behalf of the service, to secure the TASER 10 within the next calendar year. That to be rolled out to our frontline officers starting in January, but that comes at a cost. And so on the report before you, the amount $782,065 purchase of the TASER, and that does have an impact on that was not included in the budget presented to the board. So if the board has questions regarding that, certainly I invite those to down and chime in. That's the answer.
I have a few, but I'll open up to the board first for questions from the chief with respect to, so that will be rolled forward to our November meeting, as well as to what we may or may not want to do with respect to that request. 1.16% increase where we're at today. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just going to just point out, just for anybody who hasn't had the opportunity to read the memo, if this is relevant and significant, the service is this is technology that we have been using for some time, and there's no indication that it is technology that's going to go away. It's only going to continue to evolve. Some facts are that our existing equipment is no longer supported, and that to purchase into the current model year, it's already 7 years old. So just in terms of consideration, if we're going to make an investment, do we invest in something that's already 7 years old and already on its way out in terms of no longer being supported versus what is being recommended here in the memo? So I'm not going to pass judgment at this time, but I think it's worth noting.
Questions on this?
Yeah, when we come back in November, Chief, can you also bring forward, this is proposing a 1.16% increase based on the purchase. If you can bring forward what you would take out in order to maintain the same levels or similar levels. Is this a priority over other items that are in the budget? Or did this fall below the threshold? And we've got some new information. We're trying to add it on. Because I think that would be good information for us to have as a board.
Any questions from Strawn or Chair Thompson?
I don't have any questions, but I support Mayor Nuttall's comments.
Thank you, Ms. Strawn. I got a couple questions, I guess, Chief. One, 10 years ago when we bought the X2, what was the lifespan? What were we advised of the lifespan at that time when we purchased those?
Thank you.
So we were advised that the lifespan of those was 5 years, so that we're already past that point.
Sorry, I just got caught again without. Second question, the increase January 1. So this pricing is today's pricing. if it's deferred, will be a higher number. Do we have any idea at this stage what they anticipate Axon's increase for?
Chair, I'm going to hand that over to our finance manager.
We don't know what the pricing increase will be, but Axon has advised that it's standard in their practice that the prices do increase on January 1st. So we would be kind of subject to whatever those increases would be.
Thank you. And one last question. What's the difference? What's the performance difference between a 2 and a 10? You know, is the Apple iPhone that they just roll out every 6 months that we're behind the game 6 months in? So I'd like to know I assume there's a considerable improvement from 10-year technology.
Thanks, Chief. I'm going to hand this over to subject matter expert from our training unit. So it's Constable Lori McElravy, and she'll speak to certainly to provide a little, to flesh that out a little, to provide a little more color, because I think this is not just the newest generation. There are notable, huge differences, and I think Lori can speak to those best.
Good morning. So I'll start with the X2. The X2 is a double shot platform. So when you pull the trigger, 2 probes come out of the taser, out of the device into a subject. Officers have to concentrate on distance and angles in order to achieve incapacitation. With the Taser 10, it's a single shot platform where the operator, no matter how close or far, I'll touch on the distance as well, the operator will pull the trigger once, retarget to their desired location. So whether I'm, 5 feet away, 2 feet away, or up to 40 feet away, the operator is able to choose and create their probe spread. We have to have 2 probes connecting to the subject in order to achieve incapacitation. There's also, with the X2, I could talk forever on it. With the X2, there are only 2 cartridges on board, which allow 2 opportunities. That causes great issues with regards to a dynamic situation. When we are training, we have typically static targets. You pull the trigger and you're like, yeah, perfect. I had a great application. In an operational situation, we know that it's a dynamic situation. Subjects aren't just standing there waiting to be tasered generally. So with that X2, there are only 2 opportunities. With the Taser 10, there are 10 cartridges on board, which essentially allows for the operator to have 9 opportunities to achieve neuromuscular incapacitation. With that, should all 9 probes be penetrated into the subject, the weapon will only read the 4 best connections. So the energy that is going into the subject is no more than what is produced by the X2. However, it's just more opportunities for the operator to achieve compliance, essentially. Also, with the distance, like I was saying, the X2, the optimal distance away from your subject to achieve that 12 inches of spread is 9 feet. And we know that the majority of interactions are much closer than that. And officers are essentially not getting a good connection with the X2. So with the Taser 10, I could be inches away from a subject deploying two probes within that 12 inches of spread or even further and achieve neuromuscular incapacitation. The product is 0 to 33 feet. So I can be 33 feet from a subject and that laser pointed exactly where I want it is exactly where it's going to go. So lots of opportunity there. I've had the opportunity to shoot it at from 50 feet and it is quite accurate even still. They say accurate up to 40.
Thank you for that. Sorry to monopolize time here. What about training costs? I assume the officers are trained annually anyways. So is there any additional training costs? So then will that be done virtually or how do we plan to do that training?
Mr. Bound will have some insights there, but we, Chair, just so the board's aware, we already do have a virtual reality training platform that is, it is set up for the X10 because that is, Taser 10, because that is the future. Moving forward, that's what Axon will be supporting. So the reality is it's, we've already made that future investment. We could read the writing and certainly that platform is already good to go. And I think it was our last strategy meeting at the board and our most of senior management was exposed to some of that level of training. Found any?
So in a normal year, we have a half-day recertification for the CEW. With the conversion from one platform to another, it will be a full day. But based on current staffing levels and the time of year, the training is slated to commence in January, which is a standard time of year for us. Staffing levels are very good at that time of the year, so we're not anticipating any additional costs from overtime or anything like that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And certainly, for me, this conversation is a budget conversation because that's what we're dealing with right now. I don't think that I don't believe that our team would bring it forward if it wasn't incredibly necessary. I do struggle a little bit. And the struggle I have off the bat is we had numerous updates this year on the finances of the service. We made decisions with those finances, and this wasn't there that I can recall. We then had a budget presented, and this wasn't there. And now we're at budget day, and it's there. And so I think that the further we go down the process for the budget, the higher the threshold needs to be in order to meet a necessary increase. And that's the same standard that I would expect at City Hall from our team. So if this is the priority, then I get that. But it needs to be weighed out in the rest of the budget before next month. And I think that there's been no, we haven't been shy, I'll say, as a board about ensuring that our officers are understanding that we support them. We want to make sure they're safe. We want to make sure they have all of the opportunities to live a very healthy, good life. And this should be no different, but it should be done in the proper budgeting manner. Because it is almost $750,000 that just showed up on the desk.
Question. Any other questions or comments? As mentioned, we will defer the finalization, perhaps, hopefully, to November. Moving on our agenda, appointment, a motion to approve the appointment of following special constable members of the Barrie Police Service pursuant to the provisions of Section 92 of the Community Safety and Policing Act, Ontario, Regulation 396/23, and the members there are listed on the agenda. A motion to approve those special constables. Mr. Khan. Mayor Nuttall, any questions or comments with respect to the motion and the appointment of those constables? Seeing none, those in favor? Chief, I'll hand it over to you, please, to introduce Staff Sergeant Butler and the downtown strategy update.
Thank you, Chair. So earlier this year, board giving direction to the chief in terms of coming back to the board with respect to what might an enhanced presence in the downtown look like. And part of that direction was to report back to the board. And so this is the completion of that portion of the direction. And so Staff Sergeant Butler is attached to our community safety and well-being area in operational support services, and will provide an update with respect to our presence and its impact in the downtown, which we do recognize is incredibly important to our community. Sergeant Butler.
Welcome.
Morning, Chair, Your Worship, members of the board. Thanks very much. Again, like the chief said, I'm Staff Sergeant Angie Butler, and I'm a member of the Community Safety and Wellbeing team, most directly in our downtown core. During the months of May to September 2024, Barrie Police Service introduced a downtown strategy that was different from previous models. The focus of the strategy was to create a safe and welcoming environment that is conducive to social, economic, and cultural vibrancy of the downtown parks and surrounding areas. Throughout, we captured data that can be used to inform evidence-based decision-making in the future. Ultimately, this leads to a more effective and targeted strategies that address the needs of the community in a meaningful way. Our annual community safety survey reflects our commitment to transparency, giving voice to our residents of the Barrie Police Service and safety concerns. Exploring these results, we understand our community's pulse, our strengths, challenges, and areas of growth. This insight helps us stay aligned with the evolving needs and expectations. In determining the focus of the strategy, we looked at the aspects of the 2023 survey that pertain to the downtown area. 48% of respondents to this survey said they felt unsafe in the downtown of Barrie during the day. The survey respondents chose their top 5 safety concerns in downtown Barrie, and the following were the primary areas of focus: substance abuse, disorderly conduct, panhandling, physical assault, and gang activities. 39% of respondents of the 2023 Barrie Community Safety Survey said they believed an increased officer presence, patrol, and enforcement would help improve the safety of downtown. While the survey did not identify the boundaries of downtown Barrie, it's important to recognize the significant inclusion of additional spaces beyond the traditional urban core, which has an impact on resources and enforcement. For this strategy, we focus on an area that encompasses our waterfront trails, beaches, and surrounding parks. By acknowledging this broader scope, we can better appreciate the diverse range of activities and experiences that define our downtown area. Areas such as Queen's Park, Johnson's Beach, the North Shore Trail were included areas for this strategy. Our downtown strategy was the result of the expressed needs and desires of the community through dialogue and engagement. There is a clear collective request for an increased police presence, enhanced safety measures, and a greater sense of security in these vital areas of our community. At its core, this initiative is driven by the fundamental principle that everyone deserves to feel safe and secure in their surroundings. We increase police presence with visibility, with an aim to create an environment where individuals can freely and confidently engage in daily activities, frequent local businesses, and enjoy various amenities that are downtown to our area. To increase police visibility in the downtown and the surrounding areas, our efforts were multifaceted, leveraging various resources and personnel to ensure a robust and comprehensive approach. 2 additional sworn officers were added to the supplement downtown park patrols and the core. Our focus was high visibility, engaging with members of the public, education of social service resources, and enforcement of criminal activity. Officers' engagement with members of the community were positively received. Frequent conversations with BIA and groups unique to downtown strengthened support of the strategy. Social service resource cards were supplied to officers for distribution to community members. An app was created, added to officers' mobile devices for quick access to these services. 2 hotspots and 13 social disorder locations were identified for attention. 3 special constables were partnered with police officers. They engaged with members of the public, supported our initiative, and were visible at events and festivals marketed towards downtown Barrie residents, guests, and tourists. Events range from Special Olympics, the Waterfront Air Show, and various flag-raising ceremonies. This increased the number of boots on the ground from 3 officers to a total of 8 with a combination of special constables. Like sworn officers, special constables were highly visible, wearing uniforms and a Battenberg designed safety vest. Business owners asked that officers be downtown and visible by 7 a.m. and into the evening hours to address social disorder and patrol. Although an examination of CAD-created events showed peak call times that differed from this request, officers' deployment times were set to 2 to 4 teams, consisting of coverage from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. In the months of June to September, a sworn officer was partnered with a special constable in the downtown from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. as an additional resource outside the traditional business week. To increase the visibility in the downtown and access parks, officers turned their usual mode of transportation from a cruiser to foot, bicycle, being e-bike or pedal, to UTV patrol. The command post, dressed in a Battenberg design, was strategically placed in the core and at parks at different times of the week as a deterrent. It was deployed a total of 16 times. Social media posts highlight the focus and efforts of the strategy. The objective of the strategy was to increase the perception of safety in the downtown by being present, visible, and engaging. These efforts help to reduce overall harm and disorder. As we know from our community safety survey, people who do not visit downtown feel less safe than those that do. We wanted to reach those people who might not be visiting our downtown to highlight our increased presence and visibility. Overall, we hope this has led to an increased perception of safety in the downtown core. As we'll mention later, we are measuring this in our community safety survey, which is currently underway. A constant theme voiced by vulnerable individuals, a large number unhoused, is they themselves have come to trust the same officers that are assigned to the core of downtown. These relationships not only aided in investigation with community safety and well-being officers, but have provided support to 8 individuals that resulted in successes ranging from permanent housing, reunion with family members and relocation, access to resources for employment, Indigenous support, shelter from a dangerous situation of a young female, mental health, and addiction aid. Officers' interactions with those involved with drug offenses are often coupled with underlying mental health struggles. We partnered with social services to give aid and educate those that we encountered. Our present had impact and were far-reaching. To highlight, 19 individual business owners were provided support in different areas that included CETED, crime prevention through environmental design audits, personal safety education, and assistance with social disorder. There were 5 incidents where the use of the UTV resulted in positive outcomes, ranging from a missing child on a rail trail, a robbery suspect in a park area, and recovery of $1,200 of stolen property that was returned to their owners. 14 crime prevention and safety strategy presentations were given. 2 day camps unique to downtown had safety presentations to the children involved. 7 incidents of proactive Narcan administration, and members of this unit assisted with encampment efforts throughout these months. The engagement team adopted a hybrid approach to increase perceptions of feelings and safety in the downtown by visibility engagement, but through the enforcement of open drug use. 34 incidents of drug and alcohol seizures and/or charges recorded from July end. Members of the downtown, from citizens to our vulnerable population, have expressed their support of the downtown strategy. During the strategy, layers of support were communicated. One downtown business owner wrote in to say, "We have seen a great improvement with the presence of these special constables. Visibility is everything." And I'll pass the next part of the presentation off to Sam.
So in addition to the evaluation of the downtown strategy and recognizing the work done by the engagement team, we also wanted to assess our reported data over the same given time frame from June to September of 2024. And as many of you know, at the Barrie Police, we don't like to look at everything under one scope. We like to parse out our measurements dependent on the activity taking place. We have 4 categories of measurement that I further assess. We have our CAD created events, otherwise known as our calls for service. We have our crime counts, which are individual counts that take place throughout every incident. We have our crime harm, which allows us to look at the severity of what's taking place in addition to count. And finally, our social disorder measurement, which is derived from our calls for service, but essentially looks at incidences that might not necessarily be criminal in nature. However, they can impact one's feeling of safety. Now, briefly going over those measurements individually for the downtown core this past summer, our prominent call types are displayed above. And we can recognize that with these prominent call types, majority of them do come in as non-criminal, bringing up the discussion of that social disorder piece again. In the yellow bars, we see a lot of unwanted people, ambulance assistants, suspicious persons, and so on. Those are the social disorder indicators. Again, not necessarily criminal, but they can impact one's feeling of safety. And in addition, we also have our proactive police patrols in blue, community service events, and routine traffic stops. I have the ability to look at all of our generated calls, but more specifically generated calls from our police officers. And those bars in blue are just a fraction of the proactive work our officers do. We have a lot of initiatives in place which can fall under the community service events and routine traffic stops, which are traffic stops done by our police officers. And the remaining bars are those that may come in as criminal or don't fit under those specified categories. And moving on further with the discussion of police generated call types, I also wanted to show that over the past 4 months in 2024, within the downtown, we've recognized a major increase in proactive work done by our police officers when it comes to specific call types and generating them on their end. Again, community services or routine traffic stops is just a fraction of what they can generate. This includes all call types, whether that be something they're intervening in, which would normally come in from the community. We've seen about a 58% increase compared to the 2023 summer. And obviously with recognition to previous years, a larger increase there as well. And with speaking to the engagement team specifically over this past summer and generated work done by our police officers, at the Barrie Police Service, we have a few initiatives that we speak to in the past as well, our harm spot initiatives, our traffic hotspot initiatives, and the best way to track our police officers and the work they're doing in those areas is by assessing their generated call types, because we have specified book offs that they complete in order to track their intention and activity in specified areas. So we thought it would be best to do the same thing with the downtown strategy and recognizing the work done when it comes to proactive work. So over the past 4 months, myself, the engagement team, and staff butler sat down and identified 2 new book offs that our officers downtown can sign off on when doing specific activities. We have our social disorder book off, which was created for officers to sign off when they are visiting specific locations that we recognize have an increased amount of call volume. Staff Butler mentioned there was 13 of them, about 13 of them over the past 4 months that we identified. So when officers find themselves in those areas, just to book off a social disorder check, again, just putting a bit of intent and context behind their activity there. And we also introduced a community engagement check. So this call sign was advised officers to be booked off when they're engaging with the community in any type of capacity, whether that be communicating with business owners or simply engaging with a family at the waterfront, those little things that haven't necessarily been recorded in the past to be tracked this summer, because it all ties into the intention of the strategy as a whole. And moving further with our crime counts, again, adding context and individual counts for each specific occurrence that takes place. I'm going to briefly go over this because I want to identify the measurement of criminal and non-criminal events. Between every occurrence at the Barrie Police Service from the data side, I'm able to recognize everything that takes place within an occurrence. An occurrence might be one thing, but then each individual event that takes place within that is a separate measurement in itself, whether it be criminal or non-criminal counts. And when looking at those two separate measurements over this past summer in the downtown core, we recognized 15% of incidences that take place are criminal and 85% are non-criminal. And again, this isn't to invalidate anyone's opinions or say what's right and wrong, but again, just recognizing the difference in that measurement so we can appropriately allocate resources or deploy appropriate strategies there as well. And this also brings the importance of an additional metric we use, which is the harm index, which has been spoken about in the past as well. Essentially just giving weight to specific criminal offenses in order to recognize the severity taking place beyond that count metric. We highlight that these weights shown above aren't calculated by us. They're completely overseen by Statistics Canada that we are able to adopt within our data and analysis as well. And similarly, we also take it one step farther because we recognize that the detection of specific crime types is influenced by different things. Looking at shoplifts, drug seizures, weapon seizures, those types of offenses are influenced by the detection of business resources or police resources, the good work done by the front line. So we're able to parse those offenses out in comparison to offenses that the community would essentially be reporting to us, that reactive piece there. Things like aggravated assault, robbery. Again, those violent offenses are categorized completely separate under a community reported index. But essentially when running an analysis, we kind of like to parse that out, but still recognizing all three measurements. I do want to highlight as well that these three categories above are predetermined within our data. It's not like I'm reading every report, sitting there and categorizing it myself, depending on the context. They're all predetermined depending on the offense at hand. But it did spark curiosity a little bit when looking at the increased presence downtown. A few slides back, I brought up that 58% of our generated calls had increased by officers. And with that increase in officer generated activity, I was curious to see if they intervened in any occurrences that would have been predetermined under a community reported event. So again, if a violent offense was taking place or such as a robbery was taking place and didn't have to be called in by the community, was because of our officers intervening at the right place, kind of at the right time. And sure enough, when looking at those harm scores, the percentage that those types of occurrences that take place had a larger proportion this year in comparison to previous years. So over the past 4 months, from June to September, our officers made up about 5.3% of all community reported harm events. And that's because they witnessed something taking place, they intervened, and they were able to call it in themselves before the community had to step in, which is, again, a good thing to highlight with their increased presence. But nevertheless, I do want to highlight as well, community reported harm in general had decreased this past summer in comparison to last by about 6%. That's all.
Jen, just before you start.
Yeah.
Mayor Nuttall has a question.
Sorry, thank you, Mr. Chair. The community reported crime versus the officer proactive, is there a difference in the points that are associated to those crimes? I think I remember that at one point there being a difference. Sorry, I'll turn my mic.
No, so the actual weighting of those individual, they're just measured separately. The weighting is the same because it comes from the Canadian, the crime severity index. So an offense is an offense, but what that type of offense, so if the officer intervenes in an assault bodily harm, the weighting of an assault bodily harm is the same as if someone calls it in. But I think the point, and it was an excellent point with respect to when we start to dive into data, presence of the officer intervening is a far more comforting, I would argue, to our community that the officer's there to intervene and interdict.
And just to follow up on that, so there was a 6% decrease in reported crimes. There was a 80% increase in proactive. Is that? I think it was 400 and something to 800.
The 58% increase for call types was all generated calls done by our police officers. And then moving a bit forward with the community reported harm, that's again, that weighted index attached to criminal offenses. That increase in generated call types could be anything, whether criminal or non-criminal, or initiatives that they're proactively doing. That's just any generated call by our frontline.
So can I ask, what was the year over year for total crime, whether reported or proactively found for the downtown? Like we have the data of a -6% called in. Was it flat line or was it up or down overall?
And this is, sorry, for the proactive harm piece. The community reported harm index. So again, that, yeah, so of the violent crime, yes, of that, yeah. No, that's my bad.
And I'm just going to touch briefly on the social media strategy that accompanied the downtown pilot project. We did have a corporate communications summer student join us starting in May through till the end of August. And her task was to capture the presence and impact of our downtown officers through social media. So as Staff Butler mentioned, our community safety survey from last year did show that people who did not visit downtown regularly felt less safe. So what we were trying to do was to showcase our presence and our visibility and our engagement in the downtown for people who may not visit the downtown as frequently. So we did that through social media to give them a glimpse of that. Some of the stats that our student captured for us throughout the summer can show the reach that we achieved when we did highlight their presence downtown. So we can see the one large reach there in May was the results of a video of one of our officers helping to rescue some baby ducks. So showing that engagement really generated that reach and got those posts in front of a larger number of people to see our presence downtown. We also had some where there were just multiple posts that reached a large amount of people. And then you can see it does drop down when we don't post as much, that reach goes down. So it's just showing the benefit to highlighting our presence, our visibility, our activities downtown, and getting that in front of a wider audience of people who may not be down there in person to see that presence. And then just, it's been mentioned a few times, but I just wanted to highlight that we are in the middle of our 2024 Community Safety Survey. It was launched in early October, and we do have several questions specific to downtown, specific to our downtown pilot project to try and measure that impact. So some of the examples of questions are here that we'll measure this year and compare to the numbers from last year that Staff Butler touched on at the beginning. So we just want to be able to see if that made a difference, people are aware of it, and kind of how we've been able to move that needle in terms of perception of safety downtown. So it's open till November 22nd, available online, and it'll take us a few weeks to review those results, and then they'll be presented to the board at that point.
Thank you. Any questions, further questions, Mayor?
Yeah, less of a question, Mr. Chair, if you'll permit. Politicians love anecdotal evidence, so I'm going to give you my anecdotal evidence. I want to say thank you, first of all, because the work that's being done down there, I think, is incredibly important, not just for the business community, but just for every single citizen, and no one more than those who are struggling with mental health and addictions downtown. I know we're not the maybe the prime service that we would want responding to these types of issues all the time. But we're there day in and day out. And so I want to say thank you to all of the members of our service who have been down there doing that. And I'll just give you one story that was 2 weeks ago. My wife went down, and as you can tell, I eat a lot of bakery made products. And she was at the bakery. And as she was walking into the bakery, there was a police officer walking down the street. And this officer engaged, and she didn't know him, he didn't know her, and said, how are you doing today? She said, I'm doing great, thanks, just going into the bakery. He said, oh, I just left next door. I don't know what the store was, going into the bakery as well. He went in, talked to everybody, said, if you ever have any questions about downtown, about what we're doing, please feel free to ask. Now's your chance. And almost became an opportunity for the business, for the individuals who are there, to see that, but to also give feedback and feel that effect of the changes in service downtown. And immediately she texted me, my wife texted me afterwards and said, "You're not going to believe this. This officer was so incredibly kind." And as soon as he walked out, everybody in the bakery was saying, "That was so nice and so refreshing." And the reality is, we could put 20 officers in downtown at any given time, and we still would feel like we don't have enough from some folks in the community. But the work that's being done down there is having an effect. So thank you so much for doing it.
Very much. I echo the same. I've received a lot of positive comments and about the visibility. Uh, one of our Rotary events, the special constables were there, talking to all the kids, and they really enjoyed it. I think that visibility is critical. And to the mayor's point, we'd like to have 20, 30, but the public seems to want more. But this certainly has had an impact. And I appreciate the efforts of the team. And, we look forward to a continued plan. We look forward to the survey, comparing those numbers for 2024, 2023, see if there is a difference in terms of those who respond to the survey. I could see Deputy Mayor Thompson has his hand up.
Thank you, Chair. And first off, I'll echo the comments of the mayor as well. A lot of great feedback. Just dissecting some of the numbers. Are we looking at the reduction of people calling by 6% as something that we could do to change that? Whether it's by social media posts or, keep encouraging people to report and call in. Like, be looking at, is it something that we're doing that people feel that calling in is not helping or not serving a purpose, so that's why there's a reduction? And my second question is, from the numbers, I think they were 85 and 15 being non-criminal. Is that deemed non-criminal because the officer doesn't press charges, or the actual behavior of the individual is non-criminal?
So both of those things kind of have the same answer. With the community reported harm decreasing 6%, I don't think there's any influence there with the social media or community outreach, just because those are predetermined depending on the specific offense. So again, things like robbery or aggravated assault would be predetermined to fall under that category of community reported harm. No matter how it gets reported or generated. Again, when I was able to look at how many of those types of calls were generated by our police officers, they were still predetermined into that category. So again, it's just a strict index that we have, but allowing us to look at things such as that, like police generated calls that fall into that category, just give us a bit more context. But same thing for the criminal and non-criminal events. The non-criminal events are deemed non-criminal in that sense. We have violation codes that I look at, which is based off of every occurrence that takes place. And those specific violation codes that are non-criminal because they are such.
So if I could just
Mhm.
follow up, sorry,
Please.
Chair. So for example, if an officer attends open drug use and, we just don't charge that individual, we're looking at different ways and stuff. Where would that fall in that category? Like, how is that being measured?
So again, this is why we kind of parse out the measurements, because we're able to recognize a bunch of different things and kind of paint that story ourselves. So we'll look at calls for service and see how that got called in. That's one measurement. And then within that incident, we'll look at the criminal counts. So if that individual, I'm trying to think of an example, was charged with something involving drugs, that would be a measurement. And if it was just a simple non-criminal event, such as loitering, for example, that would be coded as a non-criminal event. Again, just being able to parse out those differences, but also recognizing everything that takes place within that event.
And I'm just going to jump in there.
Yeah, no, but
Sorry, Deputy Mayor, just so for clarification, I think your question is asking, so if that call comes in and there is it doesn't hang on whether an officer lays a charge. It is the existence of the event. So if an event comes in and it is a mischief and the officer shows up and the individual has drugs on them and various other things, each specific criminal element in there is captured by UCR, and so that would be captured separately. If there is no criminal element, there is no UCR code specific to a crime. That there may be a local code, but that's immaterial. That won't be a crime. So if there's drug use, then that whether the charge is laid or not, there is a UCR attached to possession of a controlled substance. So that technically would be captured under a UCR, and so that is captured whether a charge is laid or not. So if an officer goes to a mischief and there's no suspects, it's still captured as a criminal mischief. So the UCR coding does attach. Does that help?
that's perfect. Yeah, that's what I was looking for.
Ms. Don,
Thank you.
then Mr. Khan, please.
Thanks. My questions like follow in line with Deputy Mayor Thompson's questions around the coding. One of the points in the survey from last year was that like over 40% of people feel unsafe downtown, and 51% of those people feel unsafe because of open drug use. And we heard in our presentation about the see it and seize it, and like I understand Deputy Mayor Thompson's question and I heard the answer, but I'm still left just struggling a little bit with understanding statistics, or are we tracking data of the see it and seize it? Are we like, is there a way to understand if we're making an impact in like is there a quantitative way of understanding if we're making an impact in reducing open drug use in our downtown? And I guess the other question that kind of like that goes along with that is just getting like understanding if we can, and I don't need an answer to this part of the question right now, but if we can get maybe a memo back or something, like is there research around and evidence around harm associated with open drug use, or like anything in terms of the evidence-based policing work that we do that would talk about and give some perspective on safety, harm, and issues and open drug use? So two-part question there.
Thank you, Ms. Strawn. So two fair questions, two complex questions that certainly I'm going to be unable to answer both in a fulsome fashion. For the first one, and as just discussing with our deputy here, we'd have a baseline first. You'd have to have a baseline in terms of compared to when, or that, and it becomes very difficult when we talk about perception versus what's actually occurring on the ground. And as a point to demonstrate that, so when we looked at people feel unsafe in the downtown, 48% feel unsafe in the downtown during the daytime who did attend, who did not attend, but their number one fear is drug use. Is it was addictions issues. The challenge with that is, so being addicted to a substance is not a crime. It's so the challenge, that perception though, is there's a fear of the drug use, or is it the fear of the offshoot of that, stepping on a needle? All very real. Certainly a fear, I think a well-founded fear insofar as you can understand that, but that is a perceptual issue, because when we look at our downtown, 85% of the call volume down there is non-criminal in nature. And of the 15% that is criminal in nature, it's actually considered quite low harm when we look at our metrics in terms of the crime severity index. Bail violations, theft under 5,000. Now, there's still victims involved, and I do recognize that, and I'm cognizant of that. Assault level 1, there are always victims. But when you look at the broader spectrum of offenses out there in Canadian society and in cities, we have an incredibly safe downtown. The challenge is that we have, there's a narrative and the reality that people don't feel safe. And I acknowledge that. Certainly we can look at more qualitative measures moving forward. And we would have to rely on certainly more anecdotal information to some degree to that without putting forward a really robust investigative team. The second part of the question that I'm dapping on right now, sorry, Ms. Strong, can I just give me that second question again? Oh, the research, sorry, thank you. So the research surrounding that, yes, we will absolutely do a deep dive, and we will come back to you in November if that's agreeable. And certainly I think the rest of the board would be interested in that as well. And that's a fair question to ask because I think that's probably a question the rest of the community wants to know as well.
I think we could put that probably in our consent, the memo or the report. Both decide then whether to pull it or vote for information purposes.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the team of presenters. Really appreciate the way you went about it. Fair statement that the initial data that you shared allowed for an overlay with the actual findings, data-driven findings. First and foremost, fantastic public relations that's been done in the downtown and with all this combination of the social media and the actual boots on the ground engagement as described by the mayor as well. Question for you regarding the perception as indicated in the survey. And I think the fact that it's a survey, you may not be able to answer my question or address the question itself, but I'm going to throw it out there anyway. I thought the number was around 51% was directly related to open drug use, consumption, etc. My question, because that's such a huge number, 51%, and I'm wondering if the question was a little bit broad, is there any way to identify of that 51%, how much of it was perception based of a level of discomfort or fear related to the idea of proximity to vulnerable people who may or may not be homeless, who may or may not be engaged in illegal activity or drug use, et cetera, versus actual exposure. I'll give an example. Children playing in a playground who stumble across a sharp, a needle, discarded paraphernalia, something along those lines. So is it perception because I see somebody who makes me feel uncomfortable versus I encountered something that was actually dangerous and that could have jeopardized the safety of my family? I was wondering if we have a way of understanding that comparison.
As it currently stands and with our currently existing survey, no, that it doesn't go into that level of complexity in terms of seeking an answer. Certainly moving forward in further years, we can certainly explore that. But broadly, I think, be fair, and I think that does capture, insofar as that is a concern, but to your point, yeah, we don't have that specific information, that level of specificity in the question.
Quick follow-up, just given the fact that the first component was the perception through the survey and the second or third component was the data collection. I'm just curious if the data helped break down, and I don't know if you would capture, you're not the parks maintenance department. You're not the folks going out in hazmat material, cleaning up the encampments or the playgrounds, et cetera, collecting the sharps, et cetera. But is anybody capturing these incidents where we're collecting discarded materials, et cetera?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
And so, yeah, and no, not that I'm aware.
All right, I'll bring that up. Just had a question to the mayor if the city has data regarding that kind of collection activity.
Any other questions with respect to the presentation? Thank you very much, ladies. The board was is extremely important to the board. You can see by the question, it's extremely important to our community whom we represent, and we look forward to a continued effort to do what we can, what we're responsible for as a police service, assistant to listening. Thank you very much. Look forward to an update. Moving on, there were 4 items in our consent agenda. Human resource, public complaints, strategic plan update, and auxiliary special constable terminations. Would any member of the board like any of those items pulled? Questions? Seeing none, those in favor? Consent, thank you. Hand it back to you, Chief, for your monthly update.
Thank you, Chair. We're just gonna load up pictures because no one wants to hear me talk for 10 minutes, so something to look at. Okay. I think we're ready to start. So thank you, Chair, for the opportunity to highlight a few of the events and initiatives that have occurred since our last board meeting. We were very busy with community events in September and October. September 7th, Constables Bradley and Kennedy helped support the Women and Children's Shelter at their annual Walk a Mile in their Shoes event. I understand Deputy Mayor Thompson was also seen there with multiple blisters on his feet, all for a great organization. Later on that same day, Deputy Chief Burke represented our service at the Malayali, the BAMA, so it's the Barrie Area Malayali Association Harvest Celebration of Onam. Our growing community becomes stronger as we celebrate our diversity. Few more events that were attended. September 14th was a busy day with the Roots Festival of India, as well as the Doors Open Barrie, where more than 300 visitors came through the Barrie Police Service headquarters doors and were shown around the station and some of the equipment. On September 16th, there was the dedication of the Romer Rondell down at the lakeshore. On September 24th, we hosted a mini strat planning day for a number of our frontline members. The Community Alternative Response and Engagement Team announcement was on September 25th with the Minister of Health, the Associate Minister of Mental Health and Addictions, as well as the Attorney General present, alongside our partners in this initiative, the Paramedic Services of Simcoe County and the Canadian Mental Health Association, the Barrie branch. And a delegation of our members took part in the annual Run to Remember from Toronto to Ottawa and the Police and Peace Officer Memorial Ceremony from September 27th to 29th, with the ceremony on the 29th. For the board's awareness, there are 20 panes of glass with 909 peace officers' names etched on that glass. And so we remember the heroes in life. October 3rd, members took part in the BPS blood drive. Community safety officers were at the Arda Bluffs Bike Rodeo on September 18th. Chief Burke attended the Navratri Festival celebrations on October 6th. And we're very happy to announce that our Citizens Police Academy began October 9th. A very engaged group of our community heard from our tactical operations crime analyst and an organizational researcher on their first night. Over 8 weeks, they will learn about our organization and how we do what we do and the specialist skills that our people have that help us serve our community. On Friday, October 11th, Inspector Moore had the privilege of meeting Christy Marie Potestio of St. Peter's Catholic Secondary School for a tour of the Barrie Police Service headquarters. Krista was sworn in as the Barrie student mayor the month of October 1st. And we were honored to have her visit our building. Let's see, like Inspector Moore, I left my office open there. So there's a picture of her behind my desk there. Barrie Police Service alongside our partners. Play that? Is it a video there? Is it playing? It's a really cool video. Barrie Police Service alongside our partners in public safety offer our thanks to the Barrie Colts and First Responders Night at the Sadland Center. The honor of the puck drop was given to the new City of Barrie Fire Chief Kevin White, and congratulations to him on securing that post. Six new officers who choose service above self have received their badge and are already out there helping keep our community safe. Solicitor General Michael Kersner is on hand alongside the Attorney General Doug Downey and members of the Barrie Police Service Board to acknowledge this very special day. And yes, our newest officers had the wonderful opportunity to be subjected to the Chief's traditional welcoming McKibben Miles, we usually run at our beautiful lakeshore. Barrie Police Service's commitment to evidence-based policing and research was on full display at the 2024 International Association of Crime Analysts in the United States. We want to recognize our very own Samantha Scott, who spoke on harm-focused policing, citizens on patrol, perception, and police visibility, along with the vital role crime analysis plays in modern policing. Well done, Sam. Some of the meetings you attended and participated in, alongside yourself, Chair. I attended the city's Community Safety and Wellbeing Committee meeting. The Deputy Chief Burke attended the small and mid-size police services meeting with a number of our policing partners across the province. I had occasion to meet with the CEO of the Barrie Public Library to discuss community safety and the downtown. Held our regular monthly meeting with the City of Barrie, City Clerk and CAO. And as mentioned earlier, our 2024 Community Safety Survey launched last week, and we already have over 1,500 responses. The survey will be available until November 22nd and asks about perceptions of safety, police legitimacy, and familiarity with the BPS programs and services. I would strongly encourage our community to have a voice. We are trying, but we need input, and we certainly ask our community, however you feel, please fill it out. Barrie Police Service Traffic Unit has been conducting commercial motor vehicle inspections throughout September. Violations found included cracked frames, driving motor vehicles with major defects, and having improper brakes. In accordance with regulations under the new Community Safety and Policing Act, our special constables are required to have a uniform that allows them to be distinguishable from police officers. To that end, our special constables have now been issued light blue shirts. A BPS vehicle has also been received an update to be a special constable branded vehicle. Speak to some highlighted investigations now. Two Bradford residents are facing multiple charges after a traffic stop in Barrie on September 6th. During an unrelated investigation, members of the high harm unit observed a vehicle that they believed was being operated by an impaired driver. With the assistance of uniformed officer, a traffic stop was conducted, and through the investigation, a fully loaded handgun was seized, along with a quantity of cash and drugs. A 24-year-old Bradford man is now facing a number of firearms and drug-related charges. And a 22-year-old Bradford woman is also facing numerous firearms-related charges. Police responded to a weapons call on September 23rd on Drury Lane. After receiving a report of a male armed with a knife, an unknown male was observed in a car that did not belong to him. And when three nearby construction workers saw him enter the car, they approached the owner, who advised them that that individual had no business being in her car. The workers kept the male in the car until police arrived, and he was then taken safely into custody. 45-year-old male is facing charges, and we thank our community for helping keep our community safe. Police were contacted by a male who had located his stolen snowmobile advertised for sale on a social media platform. As he waited out front of the residence for police, a male from within that home exited and armed with a crossbow. That individual pointed at the victim. This resulted in another call to police and concluded a short time later with the homeowner being taken into custody. 31-year-old male was charged with assault with a weapon, possession of a weapon for a dangerous purpose, and possession of property obtained by crime. In the early hours of October 4th, the Barrie Police Service received information about two males who had been refused entry to a Dunlop Street licensed establishment after it was believed that one of them was in possession of a firearm. During the investigation, one of the males was found to be in possession of a semi-automatic pistol, and all three were found to be in possession of what is believed to be illegal drugs and substances. Evidence related to drug trafficking was also seized. And I also want to highlight the great work done by our members of our investigative services team. In the early hours of October 9th, officers with the Barrie Police Service arrested a 35-year-old male in Toronto who was wanted on a number of firearms and assault-related charges. When he was arrested, the male was in possession of a loaded handgun. Safe conclusion to this incident was a direct result of the hard work and extensive training of the officers involved. As a service, we want to acknowledge and thank our community for the outpouring of support for our officer who sustained injuries during an arrest earlier this month. The officer was injured due to a large knife sticking out of the backpack of a suspect. As the officer arrested the male, the knife caused injury to our officer. The officer received excellent medical care at the Royal Victoria Regional Health Center and is on light duties until he is able to return to full duties. On November 7th and 8th, the Barrie Police Service is proud to be co-presenting this conference, Building Bridges at Blue, along with the Durham Regional Police and the Canadian Society for Evidence-Based Policing. More than 200 delegates from across Canada, the United States, and even the UK and Australia will join us at Blue Mountain Conference Center to hear presentations from academics, those in policing conducting applied research, academic researchers, and others on a variety of evidence-based policing topics. And I'm honored to be hosting a Chiefs Gala on November 22nd at Liberty North, with all proceeds going to support the Women and Children's Shelter of Barrie. Tickets are on sale now, and it promises to be a night of great food, music, and coming together to support this invaluable resource in our community. Greatest harm in our community happens behind closed residential doors. Please help us support this organization that offers hope for those in their darkest hour. Tickets and sponsorship information is available on our website. And with that, Chair, I will hand it back to you.
Thanks, Chief, for your update. Question from the members to the Chief. Not seeing anything. I know you have to respect the officer's privacy, Chief, but on behalf of the board, share our appreciation for his efforts, and we hope he's doing as well as he can in the circumstance. So please extend that. I appreciate it. Seeing no further, a motion to move in camera in accordance with section 44(1)(a) of the Community Safety and Policing Act. Mr. Nunn, seconder.
So move. Do we need to rejoin under a different link, Chair?
I don't know if they're on the meeting anymore.
You and I maybe there's another link.
There must be. Okay, I'm gonna leave the call.
Bye.